hope he's not like prepared for this.
He prepared it. Yeah, he prepared a discussion, probably. Have you prepared a discussion?
No.
All right, timer's going.
All right, 3, 2.
Timer's going.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know what's always seemed crazy to me is that like 71% of the Earth is the ocean, and 80% of that hasn't been explored.
That's scary, isn't it?
Think about that. Like 80%. What percent of our planet hasn't been explored? So 70% of the planet is ocean. 80% of that hasn't been explored.
I can't do the quick math right now, but that's a lot of
That's
percentage.
It's a lot of
It's a lot of
unexplored.
percent.
That's a lot of That's a lot. Yeah. So that's a lot of. I mean,
It's kinda-
water.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
that's
kind
a lot
of
of
cool though, isn't it?
water.
It is.
There's so much mystery that we don't know about. So many other things we can find.
H2O, water.
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 Dihydrogen monoxide.
You know that thing that isn't wet?
Well, it's not wet?
No,
Wait, do you
it's
think,
not
do you
wet.
think it's wet?
See, this is super cheesy and bad. We're gonna be debating whether water is wet today.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to be convinced.
You're an impartial third party, and you're
someone
going
tell
to
me,
be moderating.
is water wet? Is water wet?
Well, first of all, it's not.
Pretend I'm 5.
So first of all, here's the deal. Whenever you do a debate, the loser goes first. So Oliver goes.
Whoa!
all right, here we go. So,
Jimmy, how about you decide who goes first? Though?
I'm just gonna say.
You want to flip a
all
coin?
right. All right.
Eeny,
Who
meeny,
has a
miny,
point?
moe.
Who has a point? Who has a point? Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Payton's going first. Payton.
But I'm
Let's
going
hear
to
your point.
win, though. Okay,
Just
so
hear it.
this is going to be a debate that we didn't really prepare much for. And we're going to go, my point, he'll refute it. His point, I'll refute it. And then we'll have closing arguments, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. All right.
my first point. This is a really, really simple argument. You know those things when you say, like, the sky is blue? Everybody just kind of generally agrees on it. Nobody debates whether the sky is blue. There's water in this mug right now.
Yeah.
If I were to dump this water on you, what would you be? You would be wet because water is wet. Okay?
right.
It's very simple. I don't even know how we debate this. This is one of those stupid debates.
All right,
hold on.
wait for the
Hold on.
counter argument.
Yeah.
Wait for the. Okay.
And
Are you finished
honestly,
with
I
your point?
don't really have much other of a point.
All
And
right.
can I also say something? In a debate, you may not always agree with the point you're defending, okay? I can see the other side, but for the sake of the argument, this is a really simple point.
All right,
Water's
let's hear the
wet.
counter argument. Let's hear it.
Well, I would like to point out the flaw in your logic. You stated clearly that if you poured water on yourself, you yourself would be wet. Not the water. You said you would be wet. Why? Because the water was dumped onto you. Which brings me to my point. You see, when we Google the definition of wet, the definition that comes up is wet is something that is covered or saturated with water or another liquid. Think about it. Is water covered with water?
Yes.
Well, let's hear the counter argument.
Yes.
What do you have to say?
That is the point. Water is covered with water. If you look at the science of it, there's the molecules all pushing it together, right? It's covered with itself. That's how matter works. This wood is also covered with wood because wood is wood, and the molecules of wood connect each other.
Wood is wood.
Wood is wood, and water is water, and water is wet, and wet is water. It's very simple. Okay?
Well, what if we took a single water molecule, no other water molecules, one molecule by itself? It's still water, but is it wet?
You could say that might not be wet, but we don't have that, do we? We have the ocean, and we have drinks. Clearly,
71% of the ocean.
whenever we have water, it's against other water, and it's all water. And if water is connected to water, and water makes things wet.
And again, water is
wet.
water. So wood is wood, water is water. Okay.
so
I see
let's-
where he's coming from.
so
I
let's
see
bring
where
this
he's coming
back.
from, though, too.
Let's bring this back.
Coming back. Okay.
So water makes things wet.
Correct.
So using that same logic, let's take fire for example. Fire makes things burnt.
Fire is fire.
Is fire itself burnt?
Yes.
No, it's fire, but it makes things burnt.
See, but
See
you're
what I'm saying?
comparing two different elements. You know, when the early philosophers debated what the universe came from, Heraclides said fire, other ones said water, some said air. These are different materials. These are different
Fire.
things. And the whole reason they debated is because they're different. Water functions differently than fire. Fire makes things burnt, water makes things wet. But when water by itself exists, it is wet. It depends on how you define the word wet, of course. And this is about defining terms. But fire is not burnt because something is burnt after fire goes over it.
See, the only thing I have a problem with, I'm going to come back to your point, is that scientifically, actually, fire is burnt. The actual thing of fire, in order for something to burn, there has to be fuel, and technically there's oxygen. And usually that's kind of what fire is, with fuel and oxygen. So those two combining, as soon as those combine, that is what causes the burning. So fire itself is it is burning. It is burning. It is fire. Fire is burnt, technically.
But is that an objective truth?
Well, it's just your truth versus my truth, man. Come on.
Exactly. It's subjective, guys.
Again, it also takes off like the fact of like, what do you think of the word, and what do you think of burnt? What do you think of wet? You know, what do you think? Like, what does wet mean to you?
Okay, so I think now it's time for final arguments, right?
Who's
going first?
I think we're coming out. I think Oliver should go first. You know, you started out, so final arguments. I want to hear your final point.
Ooh, okay.
He's throwing some hard stuff at you.
If you were completely submerged in water, would you call yourself wet?
Yes.
No, you're only wet when you come to the surface. Then you are wet.
That does not work.
If you are underwater, okay, let's think of this as the perspective of a fish. If a fish sees you underwater, would the fish describe you as wet?
Yes.
No.
Fish are always wet unless they're out of water, in which they start to dry.
Well, do fish even know that they're underwater?
Technically,
we're not talking about the fish brain here.
They could, because if they go to the surface, they know that's not bad. But to them, their wet is dry.
Exactly.
To a fish, the wet is dry. Profound statement. Up there with Socrates saying he knows nothing.
To the fish, the wet is dry. You know, I think we just made that up. That's deep.
Yeah.
Anyways,
just like the deep end on the pool.
Yeah.
See?
Any
how it
other
all
points?
ties together in the end?
But is it wet?
No.
All right.
Okay.
Let's hear your final argument.
So Sammy has brought up some excellent points, and I also want to go back to the original point. This is a very simple debate. This is like saying the sky is blue. Water is wet because it makes things wet, and it of itself is making itself wet. It's a circular thing. And just like fire is scientifically burnt, and you brought in the scientific aspect, water is scientifically wet. It depends on how you define terms. So finally, water is wet. And I would also like to say that in reality, actually, I kind of see that side of things. But for the purpose of the debate, we had to make this interesting. So.
All right. Am I supposed to say like who wins?
Sure.
Am I supposed to say like what I think?
Yeah.
Or like what I believe now?
What have you been convinced of?
Well, actually, technically, I've always believed that water is wet. That's always been my point of view. And yeah, I still believe water is wet.
Okay.
I think I actually won a debate over this with my boss once.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, he just kind of stopped talking and I went to the front and started helping customers again. But yeah.
Well, we had one of our science teachers at the academy actually kind of convinced me that view is somewhat valid. I used to be 100% in the water is wet camp. This is a ridiculous debate. Mm-hmm. But Mrs. Gracious made a very good argument for this. We should have her on sometime.
And that brings up the point of like, what do you perceive as the word wet, and also what is your reality? Because
how do you define terms? Yeah.
I was reading an article that basically quantum physics has like a lot to do with your reality, and like your own reality, like that is reality, and there's multiple realities because everyone has their own separate reality. It's kind of strange.
Wow,
but
this is getting way
again,
too deep.
and that makes it think about the fish. Thinking about the fish.
We're gonna tweet that, by the way.
The fish. Dry is wet.
Dry is wet.
Wow.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Faith Talk.
Check us out on all of our socials. That'll be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and all the above. We also are on YouTube.
And subscribe to all our channels, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, things like that.
And be sure to check out our merch store. It not only supports us, but it helps us bring you higher quality content.
Yeah, and remember, we got a weekly word on Wednesday every week on Get This Wednesday.
And episodes come out first of the month.
Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully we'll catch you on the next one.
God bless.